Lucia spent several years speaking and writing about the Black Madonnas of Europe, and she would always buttonhole me and try to get me to be more interested in this conversation because this was in her journey one of the most powerful topics that you can talk about in terms of what has happened in the modern world. Uh, she wrote in 2002 a book called Dark Mothers, African Origins and Godmothers. And this uh, cultural historian said that the oldest veneration we know of a dark mother of Central and South Africa was taken actually by African migrants about 50,000 years ago to the caves of all continents. She has really uh, documented and found that the historic nature of the Black Madonnas is really found in all parts of the world. Now, this was an inspiration for me, but another inspiration for me was the person who just introduced me, Dr. Nadav, because Dr. Nadav is the author of African Mothers, Bearers of Culture and Makers of Social Change. But not only that, but she is a historic theorist on the whole question of African womanism, and her influence on me has been significant because what she has done has to help to reorient our thinking about how race becomes a dominant construct in the modern era. And I think that I will try to show how that has happened with the Black Madonnas. Now, like George G.M. James, you may have heard of that name. If you haven't heard of that name, it's almost like Sheikh Anta Diop. Some people have heard the name but don't know his work. But Sheikh Anta Diop wrote Civilization or Barbarism, and he wrote The African Origin of Civilization. But George G.M. James, the Guyanese professor, who taught at the University of Arkansas in Pine Bluff in the 1950s, wrote a book that really is was a dominant uh, meme for many of us who were growing up in the 60s and 70s. His book was called Stolen Legacy. And what he articulated after having read Herodotus and his book on the histories, he articulated that uh, that that Europe, in many ways, had, and particularly starting with the Greeks, had embraced African philosophy, but had not attributed that philosophy to Africa. That in effect, he says there was no Greek philosophy; there was only stolen African philosophy, and so he studied the ancient Egyptian philosophical traditions. And he showed how that those traditions were at the base of almost all of the work that we have said have attributed to the early Greek philosophers. I had not found time until recently to get into this whole question of the Black Madonnas or the Black Virgin of Europe. But with the book that was written by Dr. Dove and myself called Being Human Being, Transforming the Race Discourse, one of the things that became clear is that many times we had gone down the wrong path in trying to deal with the whole question of white racial supremacy. That race itself, as it was constructed, was one of the ways to actually pull the veil over the faces of the world so that people would not realize that the African origin of humanity is not only real and authentic, but it is perhaps the most pervasive fact in the history of the world that all people who are living on the earth today, 8 billion people, all have African DNA. This is the history of the world. So part of what has happened with the rise of the so-called race doctrine of Europe was a disregard for and a distortion of not only African life in a contemporary sense, but also of the dark past of the rest of the world. Now, we have seen this with the Arab denial of African humanity during the invasion of Africa from the 7th century to the 10th century and afterwards, and we still see it today. So today, though, I want to discuss the Black virgins in European churches, mainly the Roman Catholic churches, because I'm interested in where we find them, their symbolism, and why their relationship to classical African symbols, and why is it that somehow this is not a common knowledge in the world when it is so prevalent in European churches, particularly in churches of the older the churches are, the more you discover and find that there are these images of Black virgins or images of Black Madonnas. One is surprised looking when you look at this subject, how common the image of Black mothers and has been in the Christian church in the Roman Catholic tradition. Even if you go to Italy, France, Australia, Germany, Poland, Switzerland, Sicily, Spain, Portugal, England, you will find churches in small towns throughout Europe, large cities too, that have had Black virgins or Black Madonnas. Now, two actions have been taken in the last 2 centuries that we need to be aware of. One is the removal of these statues. That's one. The second one is the attempt to paint them white. And I need to add a third action that has been taken. And that third action has been basically to try to uh, uh, beat down this attitude of reverence for the sacredness of the Black mother among European people, white people throughout the world, by saying that Africa is inferior. So basically, it's a protection of this notion of white racial supremacy is to deny that there are African virgins or that there are African Madonnas in these Roman Catholic churches. Just right out deny it. No, oh, no, there can't be. It's not possible. How could this be? And even if there are, then you try to then say that you can't accept them, you can't believe in them, because after all, these statues of these Black mothers is really of people who are inferior. Yet the masses of people who have honored these statues, the masses of them have seen or have believed that there were certain kinds of uh, miracles that happened with them. They have seen the power that these images have given to them. And so when you ask the question, why have Christians tried to hide the fact of their Blackness, you have to go back to understand that the origin of the Black mother and child in European mythology goes further back than Europe itself. In 1945, Emile Salins published a book that was translated as Our Black Virgin.